Hello there, folks, and welcome to the stream. My name is Mike D'Angelo, aka That Tellest Guy. I've got a little bit more of a clean setup here, so you're going to be able to see my face a little bit more. I'm going to be looking at 10 different screens. The camera's in a different place. I've got a nice ring light. So we're going to be doing things a little bit differently as I acclimate myself to all the things that are going to go on. You'll see my camera in the bottom corner of the screen. If something seems off, just let me know. I might not be able to do anything about it on the stream itself, but we'll work on it as we get there. I usually use my phone as my dashboard. I'm using a bigger tablet over here now. At the same time, I'm seeing 3 different versions of myself going around. It's a little bit confusing, but we'll make it past that. In addition to all that, we're going to go a step further today. We're going to do double duty talking Tellest. We're going to do one episode where we're going to focus on World Anvil. For people who are not familiar with what World Anvil is, it is basically a resource that either writers or like D&D, DMs, GMs, whatever, can use to build out their worlds in some pretty cool ways. I've been using it for, I think, about 2 years at this point, and I found some pretty cool things that you can do with it. I'm going to show you how to do it, and then over the next week or so, I'll put something together on the Patreon. So the items that we show off here today, you'll be able to use templates to be able to do that for yourself as well. And then after that, we're going to do another episode where we talk about the convention circuit and what it's like to be a fantasy creator that's going to conventions and things like that. We definitely slowed down a little bit because of the pandemic, but we're trying to make a big comeback in 2024. We don't know for sure yet, but 2023, we might have one last hurrah in November. I'm waiting to hear back on whether or not we got accepted for that. But I'm going to switch us over to the screen recording, and we'll go into World Anvil a little bit more. So if you're looking at the Tellest website, there's a lot of stuff. There's always going to be a lot of stuff, but if you travel down to the bottom, it shows you a little bit of World Anvil. It says enter the world, and then explains that Tellest utilizes World Anvil to collect maps, articles, and secrets that you can only find there. One of the things that we can see just from the image is there's a bunch of little pins and pictures and stuff. If we go to the very first map that we ever made, which is Draconis, that's where most of the stories take place. That's where anytime we're doing 9 times out of 10 a new story in the Tellest universe, there's a lot of familiarity there, so we like to build off of that. So all these little pins that you see here are sigils from the world of Tellest. That's kind of what gives it that lived-in feel. There's certain things that you need to do in order to make this work. World Anvil does not natively allow you to do pins like these. There's a couple of different ways that you can start. Let me just get a little bit more comfortable. There's a couple of different ways that you can start doing the things that you want to in World Anvil. You can start with articles. So you could talk about the characters in your fantasy universe. You could talk about the places. You could talk about artifacts. You could talk about the stories. World Anvil gives you a lot of different ways that you can expand what you want to do. And if you're a game master, you don't technically have to start in any of those spots. You could build out your campaign resources right from there. So you could talk about the monsters and enemy types that you have. You could talk about your campaign and what direction you're trying to go with that. A lot of different directions that you can go. And there's a couple of different tiers to World Anvil that let you do certain things that in earlier tiers like you can't do. Like I think the tier that I'm on is the Grandmaster tier, and that's what gives me the access to pretty special pins. Like these pins, they're not World Anvil's pins. I made them myself. I'm going to show you how to make them, and then I'm going to give you the resources to make them if you're one of our patrons as we go along. What you see here, I've been working in Tellest for 20 plus years at this point. I wanted to make it a lived-in world, so that's why you see like a lot of these city sigils and everything like that. I wanted it to be a situation where if someone was going to the World Anvil, they could see, all right, there's a lot of breadth to this world. And we have, I think at this point, 72 sigils. They're not all in Draconis, obviously. And you can see some of the tried and true World Anvil stuff. So you have, their river pin. They've got a volcano pin. I think I try and stay away from the basic stuff just because I'm a little extra. But as you click on these pins, you get to see some other things. So like if you go on the Adelatha pin, it shows you the sigil a little bit bigger, gives you a little bit more details. Now I'm way far behind when it comes to this. There's such a big world here that usually I just get the article going and kind of leave it there. At some point I need to head back there, but I'm working on the website, the Patreon, fantasy writing prompts. Like there's just too many things that I'm working on, and as I clean those things up, I start to pivot into other things. Eventually, World Anvil is going to be one of those things. You'll see there's tons of details out there. I'm just not there yet. But one of the things that I did today was receive another 20 sigils from my artist partner, Francois Just, who gave us some pretty cool stuff. I'm going to show you how to import them into World Anvil, how to make them in the first place. There's going to be a lot going on, but I'm in ramble mode, and I apologize for that. What we're going to do is actually take a step backward. I'm going to show you the dashboard as a viewer for World Anvil. So I'll show you what the readers that you'll introduce to your world will see on the front end, and then I'll show you what you'll see on the back end as well. So we're going to go to World of Tellest. It should just bring us to our front page. Eventually, we'll change some of this just so it reads a little bit better. Right now it's just Draconis because, again, that's kind of like the central hub of the world that you enter when you read most of these books. You're either in Daltane, you're in R'allai, you're in Crassius, you're in Blackland. Those are our 4 big countries. In some cases, you go to Ipius, which is our island continent just south of Draconis. It's technically part of Draconis, it's just not the mainland. Outside of that, there's a couple of other continents that we've gone to, but I mean, compared to what we're dealing with in most of the Tellest books, it's, like I said, like 1 in 10. So Draconis seemed like a good place to do that kind of thing. So Xana110, thank you for chatting with us. The problem with World Anvil is everything is in BB code, so having to convert text to that is a pain without using a script, and even then it's not perfect. So, I mean, you'll see just from looking at my World Anvil, like, I don't do any of the code or anything. You might be able to find a partner who could help you with that kind of thing, and it does get a little bit complicated. I wonder if you want, send me like a message or something. I'd like to talk to people who have a different experience than I do with World Anvil. And I want to see, what people are experiencing that they find is problematic, those kind of things. I feel like, it probably isn't as elegant as it could be. And I've definitely had to find ways to work around and open up the system a little bit more. And you can see there's tons of other people who use World Anvil to a level that I can't even pretend to imagine. They have a much better handle on things like that. So, I mean, that's pretty fantastic that you wrote the script to convert that for you. I don't have the know-how to do that. When it comes to programming, it's like I might as well be trying to learn Latin. But I'll talk to you about that later if you don't mind, because I think that that opens up a lot of opportunities for growth for people like me who might not know as much as someone like you does, and maybe to be able to communicate back to World Anvil and say, hey, here's the experiences that we have. It's pretty cool that you're doing that. Oh, you know what? I just realized I never changed the title of my stream. I don't know if it's too late to do that. I think it is. So we're just going to leave it at that for now. I'll change it for episode 2 tonight. I was just spending too much time trying to get all this ready. But anyway, so you'll see when you first come to the World Anvil page, there's a couple of things that I did. I wanted to give a brief overview of what was available on the page and what you could expect from the World of Tellest. So you have the very basic introduction, the link that points back to the Tellest website in case anybody wants to see any of the books or anything like that. And if you don't even want to jump over there, you have a very, very brief look at some of the books that are available here. And I think it brings you into an article on here that will let you get to the Amazon page. So if you come here, everything kind of links in. These were supposed to be centered. Xana, you can see I didn't nail that 100%. I don't even know if it looks different depending on what screen you're on, but a lot of people don't even realize that you can do this and link back to Amazon. So having something like this available for readers, this points them back to the place where they can pick up a lot of this stuff a lot easier. And there's certain things that I didn't nail down, but we'll clean that up as we go. And we had 3 new books come out this year, so I like I said, I have to catch up on a lot of these things. On top of that, we've got campaign information for myself for when I'm running the campaigns. I don't really use that here just because, again, I'm so far behind on things. It's usually in my head, and sometimes I have some of the information that I need on my computer, and I'll use that. I have the Stream Deck now. I'm trying to put together information a little bit more easily for myself, so we're going to have to play with things in a variety of different ways to get things right. Give me one second. I'm talking way faster and way more than I usually do today. All right. Let's see. What else do we got? So we have a world codex that lets you get to various places in the world Bible that is the Tellest World Anvil. So if you wanted to, you could go to people, and it would give you articles for all of our characters. Now, again, same thing as with a lot of the things, just a very basic amount of information here. Some of our characters, they're so old, like they've been with the universe for so long, that there is some information here. So we have, like, Hokeland has information. He's one of the 9. He's one of our original characters, so he's been around for a while. But if you go a little further in, actually, it looks like we probably left, like, stubs for people. Like, if you go into... We have a very special map here that only patrons have access to, I believe. This is where you'll see characters who, they're relatively new in the grand scheme of things. They have the little stub here, but if you go to the article, it just doesn't point to anything. So it's very likely that that's there for people. It's just not part of the codex yet. I need to make that connection for things. Anyway, so yeah, there's all those things. So if you need to find anything quickly, that's one way to do it. I just need to link that in. And then probably the thing that people are really going to take out of this, some good stuff, is the maps that we have. So like I mentioned earlier, that Draconis is where a lot of the focus is. If you come here, you can see, like, we've got one city here. We've got, in this island area here, we've got another city that Francois just gave us a sigil for. We might actually place that today as part of what we're doing. And if Rihanna is listening, she'll actually be able to tell me which one of these islands it makes the most sense for that city to be on. But we'll cross that bridge again when we get there. Let's go back. We have a couple of these other ones. Lustra, I think, is the one that we have the second most information in, just because we've spent a lot of time here as well. This is where the D&D campaign that we play in takes place, and this is also where a couple of our stories, short stories, novellas, have taken place. So Versailles Virai is probably the big one. That's where Arise, the sequel to Awake, takes place, and that's where our campaign, Korra's Champions, takes place. When you go here, same thing as before. We see this here. I don't believe that there's a huge amount of information here. And it's a shame, because there's plenty of information that we know about. There's maps that this can point to. I don't even think... Does it open to the city map? Okay, yeah, it does. And we kind of use this to some extent to show certain things. So we know an apothecary is down here. We know that the one guy... it's not supposed to be... You know what? There's 2 people. There's Farah and Faris. We've got a temple over here. We've got the bazaar. We've got the sewer entrance. A lot of different things that we have here. And that's just one of the things that, World Anvil will let you do. It lets you connect articles, other maps. On those other maps, you can connect back to parts of your campaign. It's got a lot of variety to it, and a lot of... It can be a very dynamic tool. I know that Xana said that there's some frustration to having everything in BB code and then having to utilize things that way. But the fact that Xana's able to make the changes that he's making, or she, I'm not sure, just shows you that World Anvil does give you some tools that you're able to use to build out something pretty cool. So let me show you the back end now. We're looking at the front end. It does some pretty cool things, but the back end can be complicated. It can be, pretty exciting. There's a lot of stuff for you to be able to build. So this is just the very front page of your dashboard once you're logged in. A lot of different things that you can create. So any of the green blocks that you can see in here are things that you can build out into your world. I started, like I said, 2 years ago. They're always adding new things. They're always challenging creators to, kind of go off their writing prompts and things like that. They want you to continue building your world, or many worlds, because you actually have a couple of different options depending on what tier you're doing. It's one of those things where for me, Tellest is one of the worlds that we're going to be playing with, but if we keep going further and further, it might be that there's other worlds that we join into the Tellest universe. So it is cool to have that opportunity there. If you go into articles, you can see all the articles that you've worked on before, whether they're full articles or stubs or something like that. So you can see we've got a ton of stuff here. You can actually go into the edit button, or you can go into the view article button, and it'll show you a little bit more about the information. Icarus, I'm just throwing the art in here just so that people can see it, so I can point them out to this article if they want to see everything. This is probably the easiest way to find all the art for Icarus, unless you go into, say, like the Tellest website and use the search feature. And this just gives a clean look. Even without any of the extra information in here, it gives you a brief snippet of what's going on with Icarus, that people can see, hey, is this a character that I want to follow? I will probably at some point, when I have more time, put together like a link for books that Icarus features in, so that people can say, all right, this is how I want to follow this person along. Like I said, the tool set is there. You can make it as robust or as vague as you need to. Once I have time, I'm going to make it very robust. It'll be very dynamic. It'll be very connective. It's going to be like the Tellest wiki on crack. Maps is where you can go to create those maps that I was saying. And again, one of the things that I showed very briefly earlier was, just because you're saying that something's a map doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a traditional map. So I made this portrait map, very quick way for patrons to be able to see all the characters who we've got art for, and again, get a little bit of information really quickly. So if you click on Bolt, you can see he's from the Golden Skill Cliffs. He's a warrior. He has natural lightning infused powers. If you click on Essex, gives you a little bit of information for Essex. If there is a full article, the button's there whether or not there's a full article, but it'll take you to a little bit more information. Now, the one thing about stuff like this is it gets tricky when you add more characters, because it's not easy for me to throw on another thumbnail for somebody and then have an extra person show up in order. It will take a lot more time and energy to alphabetize everything perfectly. So we're probably going to do a second page. Warren has been doing a tremendous amount of work making sure that we have additional characters to add to things. Tower Sphere is becoming very popular, so we're making teams, and we're playing with characters who are brand new to the Tellest universe because of that. So we're probably going to have a second page before we come back and clean up everything and make this image bigger. But that's just to say, there is a lot of cool things that you can do with the Tellest universe, with any universe, and with the map feature. The way that these work, because we're treating it like a map, we're actually using a type of marker that, man, that's squeaky. I need some WD-40. We're playing with a type of marker that only cares about the X and Y coordinates on the screen. So let me see if I can actually show you what that looks like really quick. That again is part of, I think, Grandmaster level and higher. So you've got this polygon tool, and the polygon doesn't actually draw a polygon, it draws an invisible polygon. So it's kind of like using the lasso tool, but specifying I want it to be between X and Y points. So if I was going to click this, check this, and drag and drop the new marker, if I checked that, it would start here. It would put whatever X and Y coordinate in here. If I move this over, and then if I release that, it'll give me the new coordinates, and I'm basically just making a square out of that, and then that invisible polygon shows up over top of JD Rivers. And then with that in mind, so if I click here, we know that that polygon is there. I can go in and I can edit the details of that marker. So we have that. We have the pins, and then we have all these special pins that we used in the maps for like the cities. Now that's not the only pins that we have. We're going to head back to the maps real quick just so that I can show you some of the other things that you can do. We're going to have to head back and look at some of those other things. So we've already looked at the basic things that come pre-packaged with World Anvil. So we have the volcano, we have the river, and then we have the cities that I show to everybody. Cities are a default layer that you have on the maps that I want to make sure that anybody who's coming into the Tellest universe can see. Because again, I want them to see it's a big continent, it's a big world. There's many maps that kind of bring everything together, and this plenitude of cities that you have will show you just how much is going on. But there's this little layer button in the top right corner. Let me show you what the maps can do when you're playing around with things. So you can have multiple maps within the same map site, so to speak, the page that you have on your World Anvil. So right now I have the base map. We have the old map that Robert Sapiento made for us. You can see that most of the places are in the same spot. If you switch from the alternate to the base, not really too much has changed. It's just a style change. And we also made things where there's an alternate version where you can see where all the countries are. So we know that this up here is Blacklane, this is Gandarst, this is Daltane, this is Rally, this is Warus, and this is Crassius, and then down here we have Ippius. And then we have a parchment version in case you want to see like an old school look at the world. You can click there, get rid of the cities. The landmarks, they should probably be on a layer as well so that I can clean them up if people just want to see the map by itself. But there are a lot of things here. Actually, landmarks was part of its own set. So we'll head back to the base real quick. We hit cities off. There's going to be even more cities after today. But we'll take a look at that as we get there. Some of the other things that I have on here for patrons is like an artifact layer, so you can see where all the magical artifacts of the Tellest universe live. We've got more because Stephen Belshaw has added another 30 treasures to our list. They haven't all been found, so I don't really know if I have a home for most of them yet, but at least these ones have shown up in either in my mind. I know where they show up because they're part of stories that either haven't been written or they're like legacy stories that we need to kind of connect one way or another. But most of these have taken place in our stories. We've seen them before. Every now and then you'll see one of these in another continent, but just because we don't spend as much time in those other continents, we don't really see a lot of those treasures as often. So those are artifacts. We also have, I think for the lower level patrons, we want as many people as possible to be able to see our characters as well. So we have a ton of characters that we show off. Some of these are Quantum Quest characters. Some of them are, the tried and true, right from the get-go, they were in books or short stories characters. So we've got a big chunk of people over in Viscosa. That is the capital city of Rally. We've got a lot in Adelatha because that is kind of like the hub of our storytelling. And then we've got people from all over the other place that our characters have joined, and we see them in various places on the map as well. The characters are probably more often the ones that we see on the other maps because even if we don't know a city that they're from by name yet, we know the general area of where they've come from. So we've got that. Let's turn off the characters. This is special behind the scenes stuff. So if you slogged through 25 minutes of me rambling yet, you'll see this kind of stuff. The writer ready content that you see here is only for people who I've added to the Tellest Writers Circle. So if you go to the main dashboard, you'll see that Aaron Canton has been added to the writers team, but this also includes Valena DeAngelis, who is another one of my short story writers. I think at one point my buddy Kev was in that group as well. I'll have to see. It might have been that he was too busy, doing whatever he was doing at the time to be able to really be a part of this dashboard the way that I have Scott, my editor, and Aaron Canton. But these characters are Quantum Quest characters who I basically give writers the opportunity to kind of bring up. So the Quantum Quest characters that we see are either characters who we've already established and then give the opportunity to play in the Quantum Quest world, or they're brand new characters that we create from scratch for Quantum Quest and then give them the opportunity to step back out of Quantum Quest into the Tellest World. So we've got that. I started to experiment a little bit with like an armies pin, so you could see like where various parts of, you know, whatever forces, you know, where they were stationed at in the world. I think right now I have like 2 or 3 of them here and there. We've got Argos and Paradis. They have a lot of naval forces, so we have some stuff out here. Black Lane, they were the main antagonist for a lot of the legacy stories, so I wanted to show where they were most prevalent, things like that. And we already showed the landmarks. For Velena, I used a polygon lasso tool to say, hey, if you're going to create a story, I want you to stay within this zone. So this is something that only the people who I give access to and myself will be able to see, and it helps them to dial down, this is the information, this is the place that I'm supposed to, you know, be able to play in. I think I might have even made it so that, let's see, I might have even given her a map. No, I had a map for that area, and I probably just gave her a separate link, but same way as that I showed you with Versali Barai, you can make it so that this points somewhere else. So anyway. And then the last thing that I have is if you wanted to, we had the names. I think I could technically link that in with like the territory, influence, and borders if I wanted to. Like, it doesn't have to be 2 separate pieces, but this gives me a way to say, all right, without anything else, this is all the information in case you wanted to know like a kingdom by its name and how far it expands into the world. And I did things through Incarnate, so you can see there's like a little bit of overlap around the mountains and things like that. I wanted to kind of stylize it that way, so the mountains are like your natural border, and then I have that little dotted line that helps to separate things a little bit. And we use the rivers in some cases. So you basically have a lot of different ways that you can play with this kind of stuff. But let's go back to the dashboard real quick. So we looked at the dashboard, the articles, the maps. Timelines is something that I haven't personally played in yet. That was something that they added after I already started subscribing to World Anvil. And to be fair, Tellest timelines can get kind of weird and wonky, so I don't want to do things too crazy there. That's something that we'll play with a little bit more later, again, when I have a little bit more time. Manuscripts is, I think, if you wanted to, you could, in theory, write your book right from World Anvil. It gets a little crazy for people who might be used to something like, you know, just using a Word document, but I think for the most part it's comparable to like Scrivener, something like that. My thinking is, if somebody was going to use the manuscripts in World Anvil, it's going to be like a one and done. You're going to stick with World Anvil forever. They're going to give you more and more tools as you go, and that's what's going to make it such an attractive thing to use. I'm so familiar and comfortable with Word and the way that I'm doing things now that I probably won't change into this. But again, if you're starting today and you want a tool to play with, this might be something for you to have fun exploring. But campaign, again, is one of those things that you can loop your D&D stuff into. So they have things like protagonists, supporting cast, things like that. So it helps you to keep clear track of those kind of things. If I was going to go in here, this would be a place that I could have all my party information, and I could have various plot points that I linked into the maps that didn't have any effect on what a regular viewer would see. So I'd be able to lock it down so that not only would I be able to see it alone, but I could technically give access to my players as well if I wanted to give them little breadcrumbs to say, this is what you know. I could really, because of the way the subscriber system works, and I'll show you that in a little bit, you could, in theory, kind of dole that out from one person amongst your party to the next without there being an overlap. There's a lot of stuff that you can do there. You probably could. I would not be surprised, especially knowing that you were able to write that in Python to change the BB code, or I'm sorry, the markdown to BB code. It seems like you've got your act together, and you'd probably be able to do a really good job with that kind of thing. I gotta hydrate again real quick. Give me 1 second. I should have came equipped with cough drops. So we've got the advanced tools. We've got calendars, again, stuff that I have in an Excel document that I really should move over here. I don't know about the content trees. I think that might have come along after I subscribed as well. You can see I'm not using it at all. They have like all these little like quick looks. Let's see.
And salutations.
Real quick.
To the content tree. Content trees.
The team over at World Anvil is very friendly. I've worked with them behind the scenes a couple of times.
Then type create content tree.
Let's see.
And also delete your tree.
I'm going to have to probably spend a little bit more time with this. I would imagine that this is kind of like one of those... Let's see if they show us. Yeah, all right. Some pretty cool stuff. I don't know how clean it is. I'll have to play with it a little bit later because I like to play with tools like those, but I don't want to pretend at all that I know how easy it is to make anything like this. Janet is showing this in 11 minutes, but I'm sure for a first-time user, it takes a lot longer than 11 minutes to get used to those kind of things. Discussion boards, I think, were also new, because I'm imagining this is... Yeah, this is a discussion board that you make for your world, essentially, from what I'm understanding. So it lets you create a forum-like experience on World Anvil. So in theory, like, the game plan for Tellest long term is we're going to offer up D&D content or tabletop content for other players who want to play in this world. So we're going to, create Tellest-specific spells, bestiaries, supplements and things like that. So it'll give us in addition to using something like Discord, it'll give people a way to come here, use the Bible, turn around, go to the discussion board right away, and come and talk to us. That's a play-by-play of me thinking out loud, having just discovered this 2 minutes ago. But again, just a cool tool that's available through World Anvil that I didn't even think about before. I don't know if player characters is where I linked things before. I don't think that existed before. That might be new. Secrets, I think I've used once or twice. We've got like some legacy stuff. Yeah, we've got like the alternate timeline. Some stuff that kind of ties into the legacy timeline a bit more. And the way that the secrets are supposed to work is like if you're, again, you can see these subscriber groups. If you're part of the scholar group on Patreon, your subscriber account gives you access to like this behind the scenes stuff. Now, again, there's a lot of stuff because the legacy timeline is not official anymore. And there's an even further back legacy book that it's the book that no one speaks of that we get to go into a little bit further, and like those details we'd be able to pull out and do some cool stuff with. But on top of that, you've got the hidden map layers, you've got things like that, and linking all the tools that they have into that a little bit more, there's a lot of potential to kind of bring in your super fans to let them see kind of behind the curtain a little bit more. Stat blocks is if you're building your D&D stuff out a little bit further and you want to maintain some consistency. We play very fast and loose when we're playing our tabletop campaign, to the point where like I'm making stuff up in my head as we go along because I'm trying to tell the story, not necessarily let the story tell itself. I let the fate of the die kind of dictate a lot of things, but I play very fast and loose with like the numbers game and things like that. Tables, I think, is pretty new to me as well. No, okay, that's pretty cool. So it's, again, more tabletop content that you can use to, randomize when you're doing your game. I really should dig into this because it might make life a lot easier for me, even if I'm using it at home. If we're not playing like a digital campaign, being able to do something like this gives me the opportunity to kind of do this kind of stuff on the fly, but in a more structured way, so that I'm not thinking 10 steps ahead. I'm letting the systems do that kind of thing for me. But again, need to spend a little bit more time doing these kind of things. I think the to-do list, pretty much exactly as it says, and variables and whiteboards, I don't think that I've spent too much time in. View world just brings you to the front end of your system. We're going to get into this stuff down here real quick. So let's close that, and we specifically kind of left off images because that's where we're going to end today. So meta is where you describe the content or the concepts and the stories. I think you can tweak a few things here as well. Yeah, you can mess with like the theme and stuff like that. This might not be, Xana might be able to tell me more about this than I can tell him. I think this is not where you configure like the code to change the way that everything looks, but this is basically where you're telling your audience, hey, this is where all this is together. It might not be necessarily your audience. This might be like anyone who's internal to your system, so that you kind of maintain the same style and everything. This is where you actually maintain that other information. So CSS skills, I don't have any. If I wanted to partner with somebody who did, this would be a pretty cool way to do that kind of thing. Let's see, we've got your page backgrounds and things like that. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do here. Again, I'm more dangerous than anything, so I don't touch this kind of stuff. And then you've got your settings for your world. We're going to head to the subscribers after this. So basic information here, what role-playing gaming system you're using, a lot of other places that you can look here. If there was monetization that you were using, you'd be able to see this here. There are some access denied stuff that you can see. Let's see. All right, we're going to head back to the subscribers stuff so that you can see like how I manage that kind of thing. So you can see these are the subscribers that we have right now. The writers, that's where we give access to certain people so that they can get into the system, see what they need to without non-subscribers and non-writers seeing the content that they're not supposed to see. And then in the subscribers groups, this is how you configure the various groups. So I know that my writers are only going to have very specific access. And then I gave a brief description. I have to figure out what the difference is between writers and Tellest Writer, but not right now. And then authors, this is where, you're just giving people, access to your system to play with the various things in the tool set that you have here. So again, real quick, very busy, very hasty look into everything that World Anvil does and how Tellest is using that. When we come back from a brief break, because I am going to get a refill on water, we are going to take a little bit of a deeper dive in our images. You can see here I've got some very messy looking images, but I'm going to explain why that's built the way that it is. And we'll hit back on that in a second. So I'm going to go on intermission for probably between 2 and 3 minutes, and then I'll be right back. All right there, folks. I am back. We briefly left off on this screen. I have a cough drop in my mouth right now, so if I talk a little bit weird, I apologize. Way too much talking. So it brings you to your recently uploaded when you first go to the images page. And as you can see, I have a lot of different art on the World Anvil. It just shows you, I think, the latest 8, like no matter what you do. If you need favorites, you can use favorites. I don't believe I'm using any favorites because I have everything moved over here the way that I want. I have things kind of broken down into how I utilize them. So you'll see we've got like the army markers. So any of the cities we have an army marker for. We've got artifact images. These are the pins. I apologize. The artifact images is, in this case, one image that I've used for Sepulchre's Claw. It's just like an image that I'm either using on the page or as like the cover image for that. We can actually take a look at that real quick. If we go over to maps and we go to Draconis. Let's see what we got. So Sepulchre's Claw is on the artifact layer. Up here, it's clearly not the cover image, so let's see if we actually just threw it. I probably just did it as a test, so I think that's where it comes from. If we come in here, yeah, you can see the full image, so that's exactly what we did. The artifact markers is these things. So you can see right now, these things are blown way the heck up. It's way too much information. Ha! Ha! Nobody can see anything because I'm on the wrong layer. All right, let's go to regular recording. Anyway, let's take a step back. Army markers, artifact images, artifact markers. Again, way too big. Not a lot going on here, but that's because when you're making pins like these, they're going to end up small, like what you see here. What happened to my artifact? You weirdos. So yeah, they end up small like this. You're not going to get that big look. It's just the file manager will show you it looking like this. The header images are what you see like in that portrait map. So you'll see here, it's too big for what this screen can show you. But when you go to the character markers, again, that kind of blurry look, because when it gets nice and small, let's see if we open this image in a new tab. We've got that much smaller looking pin there. So again, you've got all these things that you can do to kind of clean up your gallery and do things like that. Your maps are going to be here, things like that. I want to show you how to make a pin like this, and I'll connect that to the Tellest Patreon in case you want to use something like this for a template. For today, what we'll do is we'll just make a version that you can use for the cities. As I was mentioning earlier, we had, we had a couple of new sigils that we got from Francois. I gave him, I think, 20 the other day. Like, I hand drew a very rough version of what I thought things should look like. He usually gives me about 20 at a time, so I took advantage of that. We are going to maybe take a look at 5 of them, and I'll show you how to make them outside of World Anvil, how to import them into World Anvil, and just how to, utilize them the best way that you can. Now, again, the custom pins that I've been using, they're at the Grand Master level of the World Anvil subscriber list and higher. So it is a little bit of an expensive package to be able to use these kind of things. But I think it's only the person who is actively the owner of the world has to pay for that. So like Scott would be able to make his own custom pins. Aaron would be able to make custom pins. Anybody who I invited into that world to use the same tool set as me would be able to use that kind of stuff. But anyway, so we're going to bring this into Photoshop. And here you can see the last one that I was working on, Lilandria. But what I'm going to do is just take what I have now, duplicate it into my shield marker. So right now, again, huge because the image that I start with is going to be pretty big. I know just from playing around with it that I need to be at 0.5. And I'll bring this over to 1.1. and be able to move this down. Now I want it to fit into the shield. So what I'm going to do is just embiggen it to a point where I don't lose too much over the shield itself. We're going to center it again. I'm going to go to the eyedropper tool and pick that yellow, and we're just going to throw this in the background. So now we've got the yellow field and we still have the symbol over top. I already have an inverse layer that I use to make sure that I'm only taking what I need to still leave that nice friendly black outline. And then I'll come down here, merge these two, and then delete what's in the background. And that's how we get that nice black outline. So we'll save this in. So we're going to make it a ping because that way it stays transparent. So this is rattan or rattan. I don't know how they pronounce it. Let's do another 4 just to kind of show you what we have and what we're doing. So I have a couple of different versions that Francois gives me. It just kind of helps to show, you know, how the city uses their sigil. So we usually talk about, like, you know, how it's aged, how they use it for, you know, trade, whether or not it's naval or like mercantile, or if they're doing something with like towers or mines or something like that, and then just kind of a classier like painted look. I use the painted look for the header images, but for the shields I just use the classic traditional look. So again, we're going to move this over. I think sometimes I play with the stuff a little bit, but I think we're going to lose the outline here just because it's going to get a little complicated, and I don't want to spend that much time playing around with the stuff and boring the tears everybody who's watching. So again, we're going to go to 1-1, bring this down. Now this one actually we can play with a little bit more because a lot of the real estate on this sigil is right there in the center. So something like that. And we'll do that. Merge these down. Get to the inverse layer. Something like that. And we do have like a little bit of that overflow there. Let's see. Give me 1 second. I might have lied. If it takes too long, I'll change the way that I'm doing things. Yeah, it's going to take too long. So let's do this instead. So I want to try and get rid of what we have here. So any of the places where we have like that square that would have showed up on the traditional image, we're going to get rid of that. Our brush is way too big right now because, again, we're playing with an image that's, you know, 50 pixels big. Okay, that lets me get everything. Save that down. That one is Rockport. And there's 3 more. And in about 8 minutes or so, we're going to take another 5-minute break so that I can get Rihanna prepared for what's coming next, which is we're going to be talking a little bit about conventions and what that's like for creators like us, and you know, what you can expect if you're new to the convention circuit and those kind of things. Okay, something like that. And no, I wanted to embiggen you, not move you. to take the outer color there, so we'll have the square still in there. Merge that down. Get the inverse layer. Delete that. I think what we'll actually do is, so we're going to do this real quick. Get the eyedropper real quick. And if we go to the inverse layer again and go back up here, so it should be like a stripe instead of just the square. So that looks nice. This one was Tamarel. Tamarel is one of our newer cities. It showed up in one of the re-stories in Tellest Volume 2. Fairly sure it's going to end up in Blacklane. It's one of those places where we never really entertained where it came from, and we've been playing in Blacklane a lot, so I figure it kind of makes sense there. And let's see, we've got two more, I think. We've got Tennell and we've got Winthrop. So Winthrop is probably the one that we're going to play with because I can get Rihanna to tell us where the city should go based on her story, whether here or there. Okay. This is our Mist Dragon. This is actually on the continent of Mistfall. We lose a lot of fidelity on that one because of how crazy detailed it is. This one will be an easy one because it's just a black background. Merge that one down. Take the inverse layer, move back up, delete. There's our shield. Okay, this is Tennell. Tennell was, I think, originally supposed to be a city. I'm sorry, a country, and we ended up kind of taking it out, and this is our way of giving like a nod to something that got removed based on just logistics. All right, so our last one is Winthrop. So we'll go in and grab this big old tidal wave. Now this one's going to be tricky because I feel like we might lose the circles. They might be small enough where on the shield marker we don't see them, but we'll give it the old college try. No, we'll see them. It's good. Okay. I don't know if they'll all stick in the center, but we'll give it a try. Okay, again, we're going to have the black background. We'll merge that down. Go to the inverse layer, use the wand, delete everything that we don't need. Kind of just looks like a slime. It's supposed to look like a wave. That's okay. So I've been putting the other things in World Anvil. It should be a relatively easy thing to do. So I'll show you what that looks like. This is Winthrop. And Rihanna, are you actively listening to everything that's going on? Are you able to help me point things out when we get ready to put Winthrop on the map? Excellent. All right, so we know that we've got a couple of other ones. Lilandria was the last one that I ended up with, so we're going to move over Rattan, Rockport, Tamarel. I don't think that I moved the Airy. Let me see real quick. Should all be alphabetical. Yeah, the Airy's not moved in, so I have to go back and do that one too. That was like the only one that wasn't done alphabetically in the list that I gave to Francois. Tennell. And should just be the one other one. Excuse me. Winthrop. So I should have 6 new ones here. Winthrop, Tennell, Beery, Tamarel, Rockport, Rattan. Perfect. All right, so now what I should be able to do with that in there is I should be able to move the latest 6 into the sigil markers just to make sure that they're nice and clean. Right now, we'll go into unsorted, and you should see the 3 that are still there. So if I move them into sigil markers and then hit recent and then go back to unsorted, they're gone. So that's your way of making sure that your galleries are nice and clean. If I go to sigil markers now, I'll be able to come in here and see those ones that I was playing with. So Winthrop should show up here. Again, much bigger than it's going to show up on the screen. Even when you zoom in, they stay a steady size. What you have to do after that is, I think, go to, where is it? Because it isn't as easy as just putting the image in. You also have to say, hey, I'm going to use it like this. It's been a little while. I think it's Studio up here. There you go. So you go to Studio, you go to Map Pins. We're just going to do one real quick. So we're going to create a new map pin. We're going to call this the wind. Actually, let me see if, does it keep any of my other stuff? No. Well, if I need to rename it or anything later, I will. So we'll call it Winthrop pin. I don't think I have to do anything for tag or theme. And then here we're going to do Winthrop pin. I think it's special shadow old. And I don't do anything with the anchor point to the best of my knowledge. I think that should be all that I need to do. While we're here, I'm going to compare it to one of the other ones just to make sure. So I think it automatically associates it to -1 and -1. And then, yes, the pin shadow image was right. So now if I go into maps and we go to Eretul, which is the place that Winthrop's supposed to live, we'll show you how to drop that in. So right now, I'm able to drop this red pin into one of these spots. So Rihanna, if you were going to imagine Winthrop, the city that you made in whether here or there, to show up in one of these islands here, this is where Edmund and Cassandra were going to have their first adventure. Where would they be? Or do you have no idea and you need a little bit of help? Northwestmost island. All right, so something like here or the big island with the hills? Big island. All right, and then we expect coastal. Do we want it to be closer to Kingsley, so along the west coast, or do we want it along the northern coast, northeast? North of the West Hill. So like right up in here? That little rhombus peninsula? Westest hill. Perfect. Okay. So then here, what we do is we search for the pin. So if I type in win, it's actually going to show me all the ones that have a name that's relatively close to that. So we have the Horn of Winter. We have the Sands of something or other. We have the Raven Winged Helmet. We've got the Whisper Wind Elves, and we have Winthrop. So right now, you're not going to see too much, but in here, we're going to call this Winthrop. We don't have to give a description or anything like that. And then eventually what we'll do is we'll link it to something else. For right now, we'll create a new article and link it, and we'll call it Winthrop. Again, you can kind of clean this up as you go. You don't need to do anything too crazy. We're going to go into advanced options, and we're going to make this part of the city's marker group so that when you turn off the city marker group, it'll get rid of Kingsley and it'll get rid of Winthrop. It's going to be public because we don't want it to be hidden to our subscribers or anything. If this was a character or something like that, we'd be able to come in here and say, hey, this is part of Seers or Scholars or something like that. And then we're going to create the marker. It'll blink for a second. And then when it comes back up, come on. Winthrop is right there. So that's just a real quick look at how to do that kind of thing, how to make that magic happen. So I think for now, what we'll do is we'll leave it at that. Let me jump over to the chat break one more time. So we'll put my ugly mug on full screen one more time. So there was a lot. That's probably one of our longer talking Tellests in a while because we went and looked at the entire tool set. I showed off a couple of things that you can do behind the scenes and then how you can bring that into World Anvil in some ways that I don't really see a lot of other people do. But the whole idea, like the whole motto of Tellest is the world is in your hands. And this is one way to do that. It's to try and help bring in some more stuff that people can play with. And now we get to kind of do it in two directions because we get to show creators how to use the system and we get to see if opening this kind of stuff up for readers makes it a more compelling experience for them as well. So I think what we'll do is I'll leave the chat open for a few more seconds. I'll turn off the phone as webcam because Rihanna is going to be coming up and I know she doesn't want to be on camera. And it'll give me time to just leave the chat open for a second or two in case anybody wants to say anything, anybody has any questions about what we did. And then what we'll do is we'll take another probably 5-minute break. I'll change the title of the stream so that we actually have something that looks accurate as we go into our second episode of the evening. That will be we're really doing it so that we have a rerun that we can run because we are going to be busy during the normal time that we run that session later this month. But yeah, so I'll leave that open for another minute or so, and then what we'll do is we'll close things out and we'll go to the closing the show, but we're really only closing the show for all of like 2 minutes. Let's see what we got here. I don't want to create a clip. There we go. All right. Let's go into... Well, I'll leave it open for 2 seconds more. I don't want to rush anything. Thank you for your help, Brianna. And thank you for your forthcoming help as well. QQ. All right. You're stuck under a Luna? Yeah. I don't know what to tell you about that. I'll wake her up. All right, we're going to close the show. So, folks, on the screen right now, you should see all the places that you can find my content, Rihanna's content, some of Matt's content. You can find anything Tellest related on www.tellest.com. I don't know why I keep saying www. Everybody knows what it is. On patreon.com/Tellest, that's where you can see our daily art releases on Monday through Friday. We also have our battle maps that release there. I'm a little bit behind on those. We have a bunch of maps that are just waiting for me to put them up. I've just been dealing with a couple of other projects over the weekend. With the extra day, you would have figured I'd have time to do that kind of stuff. I will get to it, I promise. YouTube is where you can find all this stuff after Twitch gets rid of the stream, so you can find all of our oldest content on youtube.com/@worldofTellest. On our Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesday shows here on Twitch, you can find us at twitch.tv/thattellestguy, and you can see all of our awesome products. So our battle maps, our posters, our mouse pads, our awesome handcrafted wands on tellest.etsy.com. Rihanna will kill me if I don't talk about the 2 TikTok accounts that we currently have. We have Tales of Tellest. That's TAILS of Tellest. That's that's the one featuring our 3 dogs. And we've got Weird Witch. Sorry, my brain is melting. Weird Witch Wands. That's WYRD Witch Wands. That's WITCH, just in case you need to know. That is where Rihanna shows off all of the wands that she's made. WeirdWitchWands.com is where you can go to just be brought right to our Etsy store for anything Weird Witch Wands specific. And I think I've rambled enough for this first episode. I'll get more rambling in on the back end, but hopefully Rihanna will help me ramble a little less because I'll have somebody else to bang my words off of. So we're going to wrap this up. I am going to take a 5-minute break just to rest my voice for a second, clean up the stream information, all that stuff, and then we'll be back here in, well, we'll say 8:15. So see you very soon.